All right, just a 1 minute warning. We'll get started around 10 a.m. Right now seeing about 6 attendees in the panelist view. So we'll give it a few more minutes here and just try and see if we get more participation, but we should get started right at 10 o'clock or a minute or two after. Just give everybody an opportunity to jump on. Good morning. I'm showing 10 a.m. Director, do you want to kick off or do you want to give it a couple more minutes and see if we get more attendees? Right now I'm showing 10 attendees.
I think we should go ahead and get started. Let's be respectful of everybody's time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and kick this off. And so good morning, or I shouldn't say that, excuse me. We're going to be recording this, but hello and welcome to the community meeting for the City of Tallahassee Market District Multi-Purpose Stormwater Project and Blueprint's Market District Placemaking Project. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that this is an online meeting, is being recorded to ensure that we capture all input accurately. I am Dan Shear, the Design and Construction Manager at Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency, and I will be the one moderating this meeting. The 3 sessions this week focus on the Market District Park and related infrastructure improvements. However, I wanted to acknowledge that there is another community event scheduled for the same time as our Thursday evening session. The Great Spaces Summit Library Lecture Series is scheduled for Thursday, October 22nd at 5:30 p.m. And this event is sponsored by the Leon County Government, the Center for Active Design, and the Knight Foundation. It will not be focused on the park, but instead is more general about placemaking in the Market Street business area. This session is also being recorded and will be posted to the Market District website, and also the Leon County Library Lecture Series Great Spaces Summit will be posted to the Leon County YouTube channel sometime the following week. This meeting will last about 90 minutes and we will do our best to include everyone's input in the allotted time, but please be aware that we will have additional webinar sessions and also the availability to contact the project team through email or phone, as well as our contact information and feedback capability on the website. Our panelists for today are Jason Smith with the City of Tallahassee Stormwater Project Manager, Sue Tansky, who's with Blueprint, and she's the Market District Project Manager, and we have Kurt Reeder and Mary Margaret Jones of Hargraves Jones Landscape Architecture, who will be developing the park concepts. Our goal for this event is to share the project information and process with y'all, the community, while also gathering important feedback from the community on the features that will ultimately be in your community park. Our format for this event is a quick presentation on the survey results and preliminary test fits of park concepts from our key team members, followed by an open comment or question answer session that will be moderated by me. It is my pleasure to introduce our panel today, who is Jason Smith, Sue Tansky, Kurt Reeder, and Mary Margaret Jones. Jason is an expert in our community for stormwater design and policy. Jason will also be responsible for managing all infrastructure related items on the project, such as roadway improvements, utilities, and parking. Sue Tansky is overseeing the Blueprint Market District Placemaking Project, and the park is a component of the overall Market District project. Kurt is a principal, and Mary Margaret Jones is the president of Hargraves Jones Landscape Architecture firm. They are globally renowned for the transformation of neglected urban sites, waterfronts, and campuses into iconic landscapes. They will be the individuals that will integrate the amenities that could be included at the park, along with the stormwater and roadway elements of the project to create a vibrant new community space. And now, a brief introduction to the project. This project was identified and listed in the 2014 Blueprint Ballot Initiative for the Blueprint 2020 program, funded by a local 1-cent sales tax to implement community infrastructure projects in Leon County and the City of Tallahassee. The public outreach and technical analysis regarding Blueprint's park project will result in the development of a park concept that will be presented to the Intergovernmental Agency Board, our IA board, comprised of all city and county commissioners for a final approval early next year. We have already received input on park features through prior and ongoing outreach efforts, and the final park concept will integrate the community's vision for the park with what is both financially feasible and physically possible on the site. Both projects build from and align with the Market District Sense of Place plan and will be planned, designed, and possibly constructed together as many components are interrelated. I'm now going to ask Jason to give an update on the current status of the infrastructure improvements. Jason?
Thank you, Dan. Well, since the last public engagement meeting in August, we've been working on preliminary engineering concepts for the stormwater management systems, roadways, and intersection improvements. And I'm going to talk for just a few minutes about these concepts. We've developed a schematic drainage plan for the project, which all drains to the west stormwater facility before discharging off-site. The schematic plan includes water quality treatment components, rate control and flood protection components, and water feature elements. The West Pond, adjacent to the Hawks Nest and Bobbin Trace neighborhoods, is the first major component of the infrastructure improvements that will be constructed. This 8.5 acre wet detention facility will provide water quality treatment and flood control for over 250 acres of contributing area, including the park and roadway improvements. It will also provide retrofit stormwater quality treatment for about 40 acres of currently untreated runoff from the west and northwest. The West Pond includes a permanently wet pool area shown in blue and a littoral shelf with wetland plantings shown here in light green. Final design and permitting of this facility are underway, and construction is slated to begin in the first quarter of next year. The East Park area will include a constructed wetland and stormwater pond amenity. Details of these two components are being determined during the programming and master site planning currently underway with the park. Preliminary engineering concepts for Mcclay Boulevard and Mcclay Commerce Drive have been developed, and the associated engineering report is being finalized. As can be seen here, the concept for Mcclay Commerce Drive is a 2-lane divided road with a raised landscape median. On-street parking is being proposed on the north side of this roadway. Due to traffic volumes and design consideration, turn lanes are not proposed along Mcclay Commerce Drive. Based on traffic engineering analysis and safety considerations for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicular traffic, roundabouts are proposed at the intersections of Mcclay Commerce Drive with both Martin Hirsch Road and Mcclay Commerce Drive with Mcclay Boulevard. A similar concept of a 2-lane divided roadway with landscape medians is proposed for Mcclay Boulevard. And just to note, I rotated this view 90 degrees, so north is to the right on this picture. A northbound left turn lane is proposed at the entrance to Mcclay Hammock at Mosswood Chase, and mid-block left turn lanes are proposed at some locations. All infrastructure improvements are proposed with combinations of wide concrete sidewalks and multi-use trails that will provide interconnectivity with other proposed Market District projects, such as the park and enhanced stormwater features. All these exhibits will be posted to the project website for further examination shortly following our meeting this morning. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kurt Reeder of Hargraves Jones Landscape Architects.
Thank you, Jason. Let's see this up here. There we go. Today we will continue on with park programming. Right. Let's start with the schedule. And as a reminder that we are early in the process of programming and master site planning for the park. And as Jason just pointed out a moment ago, the larger stormwater and roadway improvements are progressing slightly ahead of and on a slightly different schedule, though we are closely coordinated. As Jason We expect to reconnect with you again in mid-December with 3 site plan concepts and through a similar set of meetings. And the goal is to return with the recommended program to be presented to the Blueprint Board in February. It's at that point, documentation would begin at some point in the spring of 2021. Our agenda for today includes 2 topics. One, a synopsis of the public meeting comments and the online survey, plus a first pass at test fits for a possible program of activities and inviting your feedback today. In mid-August, we held 3 Zoom presentations. Each had roughly 50 live participants, and we had a lively question and answer at the conclusion of each of those meetings. And we distilled this feedback into 4 slides titled Questions, Concerns, Opportunities, and Support regarding some of these detailed topics. So regarding some of the questions we heard, participants asked several over the course of the 3 days regarding various topics, including Greenway along the Western Utility Corridor, which Blueprint directly addressed as not having, the planning is not proceeding and is not a part of this project. We also heard questions about traffic congestion, road improvements, and parking spaces, which the city has indicated are proceeding concurrently with the park effort. And we also heard advocacy for greater ADA and pedestrian connections across the district. Finally, questions regarding the schedule and funding, all of which we responded to live during the August event. So in terms of concerns, attendees voiced several concerns about specific items, including proximity of trails to neighbors on the west end, and in particular, the aforementioned Greenway alignment along the West Utility Corridor, not a part of this project. But also the proximity of the park to residences with regard to noise, lighting, and security, and again, vehicular congestion and parking. We also heard opinions regarding the appropriateness of bike skills course relative to the limited space available within this park boundary. So in terms of opportunities, participants noted that a market district park should appeal to a broad spectrum of users, and notable comments included making this park different from Cascades or Tom Brown Park or from other municipal parks. Comments advocated for improved pedestrian access to the park from various neighborhoods and across the district is really one of the core promises of this park. So Zoom attendees provided a number of targeted suggestions for the park, and to make these a little bit easier to consume for us today, we have categorized these according to 6 basic topics: overall, specific, structures, bike skate, vegetation, and connectivity. So using 6 color-coded topics, as I just described, that results in 6 kind of mini word clouds. So word cloud, we're using the number of responses we got, and we're illustrating those through their point size. So the bigger the point size and the bolder it is, the more comments we got back. The smaller, the fewer comments we got back. So some of these were about general advocacy for a park, while others sought to provide a distinction about specific topics. And in particular, several respondents differentiated between biking overall as being good. There was a consensus for that. And then there were further questions about a bike park, which was had more mixed results. And I should note that our public meetings preceded conversations about bike skills at a later date. So with that, we'll shift over to the much larger results from the online survey. And the online survey had 14 questions, and it attracted more than 1,200 respondents over the 9 days it was active. And rather than read through to you each of these questions on this one page, I've broken it out into 6 slides. So first off, 98% of the respondents live within a 10-mile radius, with most residing in the 32312 or the 32309 zip codes, both on the north side of Tallahassee, and bracketing the park site shown here as a pink circle. The majority of the respondents were in the 36 to 45 age bracket, with the remainder more closely distributed between the 25 to 35 and those older than 46 brackets. There's not so much feedback from the under 25 bracket of post-high school, post-college age residents. 45% of the respondents visit the district weekly, with 20% visiting daily. And unsurprisingly, most visit the district for restaurants, shopping, and socializing. A very small number of respondents actually work in the district. Nevertheless, the responses reinforce the label of market for the district as a place to exchange goods and services and to generally socialize. So for question 4, the range of specific reasons respondents visit the district include daily and weekly household related tasks. Those include services, self-care, and socializing with friends. And you can begin to see the great wealth of different reasons people visit the district. And most visitors to the district travel in from between 1 to 5 miles away, and those within 5 to 10 miles away. Most all drive to the Market District and would do so for the proposed park. Upgraded sidewalks and bike lanes will make it easier to get around the district into the park. And one of the continuing themes of the responses has been greater connectivity, the better for the district, the better for the park, and less car focus. That said, question 6 points out that cars remain the most obvious dominant form of transportation to and through the district, with several respondents emphasizing their own current mountain biking across portions of the site, and they would expect to do so. 3/4 of respondents anticipate coming to the Market District Park with others, fewer for a strictly solitary experience. Question 8, the majority of respondents anticipate bringing their spouse or significant other, friends or children. Fewer dogs are expected to be brought, and that surprised us because Florida has a 40% dog ownership rate, and that's just above the national average of 38%, and yet 26% of respondents indicated a willingness or interest in bringing a dog here. There is an even distribution of children's ages, with 42% having no children at home among the respondents. So we get to the meat of it here. The last 4 questions get into greater park detail, and they focus primarily on movement along pathways for running and walking and playing on a playground or splash pad. Results emphasize a desire for shaded spaces to gather and socialize, with a preference for open vegetated spaces rising toward the top of the list, along with shade. Specialized activities drift down the list a bit. Those include court games, public art, bike facility, and dog park and skate. The second part of question 10 asks respondents for greater specificity. So that allowed respondents to write in detailed responses. Looking at these responses as a word cloud breaks the data out into breaks it out of what I've been showing you so far as generic bar graph categories and into specific activities. And this helps emphasize through the size of the font and the darkness of the text, the frequency with which respondents favor a multi-use path, gardens, shade, event space, it's multi-use, and still more shade in the form of a structure, shade structure. Question number 11 pulls back a little bit further from the particulars of a proposed park to identify the feel of this park, with responses covering a broad spectrum of aspirations, some passive, all family and community focused. On question 12, Cascades and Tom Brown Park top the list of local municipal parks that best exemplify what the district park should strive for. And zooming out a little bit further to encompass the entire panhandle, for question 13, we were surprised to see that both Tom Brown and Cascades still top the list amongst all regional parks, even once factoring in the larger golf parks. And the consensus is that the city parks have a lot more to offer than some of these larger state and more expansive federal parks in terms of activities and their upkeep. On question 13, we also asked why a particular park is favored, with attributes of these parks centered on a diversity of things to do. So responses emphasize the promise of shade and wide open spaces for any number of conceivable activities. In short, parks generally provide a compelling reason to leave your home, to see something or someone, and to move beyond the limited space of your own home, regardless of how small or big it might be, to explore something. So the final question was 14, and respondents were asked to provide additional comments, and many of the 460 plus comments provide support for the park in general. It was very clear the enthusiasm was high. Several were effusive with enthusiasm for the park, while just 17 provided a variety of reasons against. Children's play garnered considerable feedback, with 6 times as many advocates for a splash pad compared to those against. And a custom, partially shaded, inclusive playground was more than 8 times as popular as those indicated dissent. The written responses provided greater insight into the bike skills, advanced mountain biking, and skateboarding topics. Advocates to opponents were nearly evenly matched regarding the KCCI bike skills. We can distinguish between biking generally and a bike skills course because the written responses differentiate with detail. Mountain bike advocates detailed their preference for challenging off-road trails and progressive challenges well beyond a basic skills course. Several wrote specifically against single-use features like a pump track or similar features just for mountain bikers. And support for a skate park was evenly split, with several supporters noting that integrating skatable features across the park would also be a welcome alternative. So what does that tell us? There's roughly parity between advocates and opponents for each of these 3 park components. A few noted that mountain bike use of the utility corridor was even fun to watch from their residential property. Farmers market, vendor stalls, and food trucks provide another potential reason to visit a park. Farmers market advocates wrote of missing the activity district. However, there was no support for a permanent vendor stalls or tables, with a handful explicitly speaking out against that. Food trucks attracted several supporters, with a few speaking out against as well. Parking is a polarizing topic, predictably, with advocates for plentiful parking and a similar amount aiming for the bare minimum of parking. And that represents an effort to minimize sprawl and protect the limited acreage for park uses. Few advocated for a dog park or a pet-friendly features, while more were outspoken in their dislike of a dog park. And just 1 advocate for a cat park, if you can believe it. I include this only to illustrate that we dug really deeply into the public comments and into the results to have a firm understanding of what we heard from you all. Other topics were far less for and against and amounted to advocacy only. To make this more consumable, we have assigned a text size proportional to the number of responses within each of the next 5 categories. Shade dominated all the topics, with wide open, flexible green space a close second, and native plants round out this category for vegetation. For connectivity, building upon the earlier discussion of bike skills and skating, many respondents emphasized that a multi-use pavement for walking and running and cycling were preferable to a dedicated use area for bike skills or skating or off-road cycling. Forging stronger pedestrian and bike-only connections to and from the park between commercial properties and residential neighborhoods to the north and west were specifically and often emphasized. Blueprint has already stated that this project will not include an updated north-south greenway connection to Mcclay State Park along the utility corridor, given the prior resident feedback. So it was surprising then to record some support for this at this process. Finally, a dozen noted that traffic congestion and road improvements are merited, and the city has already progressed on determining the roadways and streetscape upgrades. Regarding active recreation beyond cycling, skate, and play components, pickleball was clearly dominant, with volleyball making a low-level showing. There are very few advocates for a football field, basketball court, bocce, or disc golf. You can see them really small in the distance there. Relative to other specific components, complementing both the shade tree and farmers market advocacy, more than a dozen respondents specifically asked for shade structures or a multi-use pavilion. Others commented that lighting must be subdued and avoid glare into adjacent residences. Finally, I believe here, a general comment, Cascades was noted as a really good precedent, though if it had more shade, it would be great. So that's our opportunity for the Market District Park, is focusing on shade. Others advocated that the Market District should be unique, park should be unique and different from other Tallahassee parks. And ultimately, this park needs to be friendly, approachable, safe and secure, and distinctive. With that, I'm going to hand this off to Mary Margaret Jones.
Thank you, Kurt. All right. Okay, so as you can see, that changed view. Hang on. See if it'll hold this time. So as you can see from what Kurt just took you through, there are a lot of ideas and desires for this park. And our job now is to come to you with a balance of those desires and to, most importantly, create a landscape framework that will last for generations, within which many of these desired programs can evolve over time, because desires for what people want to do in parks will evolve over time. So we have broken down the input we've gotten from you into these 4 categories: play, socialize, connect, meaning physical connections as opposed to social connections, and nature. Now, this diagram is very important to note that all of these are in the same scale as the site. So in this upper left-hand corner, you have the site, and then these are all the various desires for things to do on that site. Now, some of them show various sizes for one thing, so we're not trying to put all of these on the site, but nonetheless, you can see there are a lot of different desires. So at this point, we're not showing you proposed solutions. We are just giving you a sense of scale as we test fit some of these desired programs. And you see by color, these are broken down with play and recreational features in pink, and green designating more natural features, blue for connectivity features, and socialize in orange. Now, I will take you through these one by one so you can get a better sense of each one. So we start with playground. We heard lots of feedback about playground, positive feedback about playground. So here are some examples and the scales they would be on the site, and then pictures below of what they were like, what they are like. So I start with Scissortail Park. This is a project of ours in Oklahoma City, and you see the size landed on the site, and then you see a picture from above of lots of different play features. Cumberland Park in Nashville, another one of our projects, you see here. And then Cascades Parks and Tom Brown Park, and you see the sizes of those played areas. And notice Tom Brown, for instance, the light outline is the area of green that it also is play versus the area of actual play structures, which is in the pink. So you can see that children's play can be a substantial feature of the site and take up a substantial amount of size. There was also a lot of positive feedback about a splash pad, and splash pads can also come in a range of sizes. And of course, given the Miami weather in the summer, splash pads are a great feature for kids of all ages to cool off. So on the far right, you see our project in Denver Union Station, and you see the number of adults. Carruthers Park being much smaller. So Denver Union Station being here, Carruthers Park being just a small splash pad with a few jets of water. And then in terms of size, sort of in between Cascades Park in Tallahassee. Now, dog play. Dog play can come in a variety of types. If you look at the Bradfordville example, that's probably not what we're suggesting is appropriate here. And I would call that more a dog park for exercise and for training of dogs. And what we're talking about here for this project, especially given the feedback that we got, is more of a place to socialize with your dog and for your dogs to play, which might be smaller, like the Curtis Hickson Dog Park example on the left and that you see on the site. Exercise. Now we've heard a variety of, and I think I just said Miami when I meant to say Tallahassee. I apologize for that in terms of weather. I think they both have similar weather. We've done projects in Miami, so I apologize for that. Play, exercise. It can either be a destination exercise station, like you see from Magazine Beach and the image on the left, or it can be a loop. And I think given the kinds of feedback we got about connectivity and access, a loop could be dual purpose or multi-purpose. And there could be fitness stations along such a loop. And for example, you see here the Lafayette Park Fitness Trail, which is almost a mile long. And you see how it could loop around. And then finally, court games. We did not get a lot of response vis-a-vis court games, except for pickleball. And here you see one pickleball court, or here you see 3. So something that's fairly easy to fit into a park, and it's fairly easy to fit in a multi-purpose way. You can have a surface that can be used for pickleball and other things as well. And then bike play, and there's of course been a lot of conversation about what does that mean. And I think to go back to the feedback we got, to make this a place that is welcoming for all and that is community focused and family focused, we would see bike play that's integral to the park, integral to the landscape, and definitely one that speaks to a lot of people and not just a focused single user group. So we would look to ways to integrate bike play with the park. And you can see here various sizes, but perhaps it's more of a loop. You know, perhaps it is coordinated with the idea of a fitness circuit. We will look at various ways of achieving and looking at multiple solutions to these various desires. And then finally, a skate park. There was, as Kurt said, there was sort of mixed feedback about a skate park. And you see here 2 facilities, one in Tallahassee and one in Europe, which is the one on the right. They're both integrated within parks. The one on the right, even more integrated with landscape landforms, for instance. But again, with a skate park, you get into the issue of less variety of users. And more targeted users. So how to incorporate these more focused user groups within an overall park for everyone is our challenge and our goal to balance. Okay, so now we get into socialize. And these are 3 different sizes of open lawns from 1 acre to 3 acres. And you see examples down below. So Discovery Green, 3 acres of lawn. Discovery Green is a 12-acre park in Houston. Chattanooga Waterfront Park, 1.5 acres, and then Carruthers Park, a little bit less than 1 acre. And you can see the kinds of space any of those 3 would take up on the site. Again, flexible lawn, open event space, and more examples from Tallahassee, ones that you might know. And you can see, for example, how those would use up a good deal of the site in some cases and fit in and balance with other uses more in other cases. Now, gathering spaces. So this is thinking about shade pavilion in a way, as you can see, landed on the site here. Think of them as in a group, either whether they're the Market Square kind of pavilion that you're familiar with, or a more multi-use shade pavilion on the right from Tampa, or they could be distributed throughout the site, more dispersed, multiple ones. So you have various gathering places in a more informal way, as you see in the Curtis Hickson Waterfront Park on the lower right in Tampa. And then of course there is the farmer's market. So it is interesting to note the size of the Cornerstone Church farmer's market on the site. So you can begin to see that we are trying, you know, if we took the larger of all of these, we're trying to put 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. So we start to think of multiple solutions, and parking is very much the same way. So in the presentation of the potential roadway parking, you saw these potential roadside 15 space parking areas, but you can see then on the other hand how much space 125 spaces would take up on the site. In these examples, you see that no matter how many we end up on the site, and we will be balancing what makes sense, you can see that we can design the parking in a way that makes it very integral to the park and multi-use. Now we get into nature, and really nature is what we heard the most responses, positive responses about. So we start with native gardens, and they can be of a variety of sizes. Really, this is just a matter of how much we can make fit and balance with other uses, but it had a lot of positive response. Community gardens. Now, community gardens are different because community gardens are not necessarily public. Note that lower right-hand image. They are often fenced off because they have to be managed. And the management of them is sometimes an issue. It gets into proprietary rights, but sometimes they're highly desired, and they could be, as you see in the Macon example, small. Now, pollinator gardens. Pollinator gardens could be mixed with native gardens and urban gardens, as you see in these examples. Velo Garden in Dallas, for instance, that's an urban garden in downtown Dallas, but we've used plants there that attract pollinators. And then you see in Cascades Park and Mcclay Park as well in Tallahassee examples. So the whole thing could be a pollinator garden if we look to the Mcclay Garden as an example at 13 acres, or they could be integrated with other features, as you see in the examples of test fits of Belo and Cascades. Wetlands. Now, Jason mentioned that on the east side, we will be re-envisioning stormwater management and wetland and making it more of an integral part of the park. So again, you see here examples of how those features can be part of a park experience, a beautiful respite within the city, also performing a function in terms of habitat and stormwater management. And you can see the various sizes. Again, the whole park could be a wetland park. So that is a good place to conclude with showing you sort of exemplary cases, I would say, of each of those. If we took each of those and sort of began to balance them with the feedback we got, you might begin to see an array like this. And you could begin to then think about how we might land these on the site. And I'll just state one more time, as I said earlier, our goal will be to find a right balance and a right fit, and to create a park that is open and welcoming for everyone, but has features that will activate and make this park safe and lively. So when we come back, as Kurt mentioned, we will show you an array of options. We will show you a few options, and we might show you one that is more nature focused. What if we made this park mostly nature focused? And by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, shade trees. And that actually came up the most almost of anything. And you see just how much we could make this whole park shaded with trees. So we will come back with this array. As I said, one might be more nature focused, one might be more recreational focused, one might be more social focused. And then we will show you some hybrids, which will ultimately be the most likely place we will all head toward a balance and a synopsis and a hybrid solution. So with that, I turn it back to Autumn.
Thank you. That was a great presentation, Hargraves-Jones team. I appreciate your professionalism and your skills that you bring to this project. It's been great working with you guys so far. So I just want to summarize the presentation that they gave to us today. It really illustrates our process for considering each of the suggestions that our team heard from you, the community. And we heard from you in August, we heard from you from emails in July and throughout, even as early as last week. We're still getting emails from everybody, and that's a great thing, keep them coming. But this presentation serves as a record of the data that we received from the survey results, the questions and answers we had through that process in August. And then it shows Hargraves-Jones' work in September to fit the elements that were suggested by the community onto the site. This has helped to focus our attention on which landscape types and park activities may be a good fit for this future park. Moving forward, we expect to have 3 to 4 concepts that will accentuate the different program mixes, like Miss Mary Margaret said, and you'll consider those at the next public outreach. And then we'll continue to refine into likely this kind of different hybrid concept, maybe multiple concepts as we move into early 2021. And our goal is to present a recommended concept as a result of all of the work that we've done thus far, and we'll do this winter into this recommended concept that we'll present to the IA board likely in February. And then when we get the direction from our intergovernmental agency board, which is the joint sitting of the city commissioners and the county commissioners as one body, we'll then move into our design documents in the spring of 2021. Dan, I know we probably have some people that have some questions for our project team, and I think we're ready to transition to that Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you all our panelists for the great presentation and record of our feedback to date. I do see some attendees have already figured out how to raise their hand in the chat panel, and we'll go through that here in a few moments. But I also wanted to encourage everybody to please visit the website, https://tallahasseemarketdistrict.com for additional information. And as you said, Director, let's get started with the comments and questions. We have the project team assembled and are glad you all joined us. We are eager to hear your questions, comments, or ideas, and we ask that you keep your comments brief so as to give everyone an opportunity to be involved. And also please remain muted unless recognized by the moderator to avoid audio issues for all our participants. In order to give everyone a chance to be heard, we have a couple of ground rules. Number one, please keep it civil. And number two, please keep it to 3 minutes or less. Please be sure to click the participants button at the bottom of your screen and use that raise hand function to let us know if you'd like to be recognized. We'll do our best to keep track of in the order of the folks that are raising their hands for comments, but please be patient as we try to incorporate everyone's input. If your question or comment needs a more detailed response, we may ask you to leave some contact information so that we can answer your question completely and provide you with all the details needed. We will continue the conversation with you offline, but we will also be sure to post that online on our website for the benefit of everyone in the community. So now I see Ms. Deborah Crowder has her hand raised, and I'm going to bring you into the session, ma'am, and you're available to unmute and begin the discussion. Mrs. Crowder, I'm still showing you as muted. There's in the lower left, at least on my screen, there's a mute and unmute button. If you could find that on your screen and tap that. There you are.
Hi. I live in Mcclay Hammock, and by and large, our residents that live over here are very excited about the park. We have concerns about how the park boundary that is our neighborhood is going to be handled, because we've got 20 or 30 or so residences that their back is going to be right there at the park. So we're wanting to hear what sort of landscaping, natural setting is going to help shield the neighborhood from whatever proposed activities happen in the park.
That's a great question, Ms. Crowder, and I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Kurt Reeder if he doesn't mind answering that one.
That's fine. So as part of our initial analysis, and actually I think in December we will need to share that with you all, we have begun to map where all the existing fences are. There are 3 or 4 different types of fences. So we have a pretty good idea where those are, and we can talk a little bit further about how those might be extended or modified to provide a proper boundary between the park and the residential private properties. Mary Margaret, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I was going to add that with our emphasis on creating a landscape framework within which various program elements could be fit, our emphasis will be on landscape. So I would see this park having a kind of landscape surround that would I hope, ease your concerns about adjacencies, so that destinations within the park are within the park, and the park has very green and friendly edges.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Kurt and Mary Margaret. I'm seeing Sue Hansen has her hand raised. I'm going to bring you into the event. Again, folks, if you can raise your hand on the Zoom meeting, and that'll let us know if you'd like to be recognized. Ms. Hansen, you're in the session and available to talk.
Hello, am I connected?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, good. I have several questions, most relating to the concept of the skate park and the bike park. Let me start with those. Initially, when Miss Mary Margaret, when you were speaking, you had addressed, I think, that the results, the survey results on the skate park were mixed. And I know that the results said it was either the skate park, only 13% were for it, and the bike park, only 18%. It doesn't seem correct to say that's mixed. It's more the vast majority were not in favor. Second of all, about the bike paths, I'm wondering about the multi-use idea. Would the paths be open for walkers and bikers alike? And is that not a danger to seniors?
You want to address those and then back, or do you want to go ahead?
Well, let's do well,
Okay.
I'll just add my second two, and then you can address as you like.
Okay.
Addressing the parking, I see that as a big difficulty. Apparently, this park is going to attract many more people. I live in Mcclay, Hammock. We are going to be most impacted by this park in terms of noise, traffic, lights, etc. We're a lot of senior citizens who just want a quiet nature place to walk. It occurred to me that parking could be helped if it could be afforded to have, and there's small ground space, a parking garage kind of idea. Has anyone considered that? Is that at all feasible? That's my question there. And finally, for the East Stormwater facility, that's such a beautiful pond, in the future, will it have to be fenced off as it still is now, or not? Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mrs. Hanson. So I just want to reiterate, make sure I understood all three. I think you have three specific questions, and they'll go to different folks. One concerns with the bike skate park and also the path sharing usage, and I'm going to ask Hargraves Jones to address that in a moment. And then you had concerns with parking and how we're going to facilitate that. And then your last question was with the fencing off of a stormwater pond. And I'm going to ask Jason Smith and his city of Tallahassee to address those last two associated with the parking, the garage, and then the stormwater pond situation. So to start, I'm going to ask Kurt or Mary Margaret to please address the path and bike skate park analysis that she offered.
Let me start because I may have, it may have been confusing the way I addressed the percentages. The percentages of people who said they wanted skate parks or bike parks, those were the percentage of people who put it in their top three. So other people may have had it, but not in their top three. So that 13 and 18% respectively were the people who put it in their top three. The mix, the equal mix was what we got in actual written comments. So the written comments we got were very, very mixed, you know, very, very, many people love it, many people hate it. So it will be our job to deal with how to address those kinds of polarizing issues in a way that's a win for everyone. I'll turn it over to Kurt.
Well, with regard to multi-use path, your point is well taken. There are users of varying degrees of competence, from small children to seniors who are energetic and out moving around. So given the size of the site that we have, it's our task to figure out, is it appropriate to have a 8-foot wide path, or a 10-foot wide path, or a 15-foot wide path? And it may be ultimately that we end up with a hierarchy of multi-use path sizes that provide a more comfortable circuit, and then maybe spurs off that are a smaller width that allow for slower traffic on foot only, as opposed to on wheeled items. So that's something that is part of the design process, and we will walk into that forward with you.
Thank you, Kurt, and thank you, Mary Margaret. Jason, do you mind addressing the issues on parking and a potential parking garage, and also the stormwater pond fencing?
Sure, Dan, I'd be happy to. I think that Mary Margaret and Kurt both mentioned in their presentations that parking is also a very polarizing issue. There are lots of folks that want lots of parking, and then lots of folks that want lots of open space as well. And so that'll be an additional challenge, and something that has been on our radar since the very beginning, is how to adequately and effectively and efficiently park the park. That's a term that Kurt taught me a few weeks ago. And so I don't know that we've necessarily considered a parking garage per se, but parking is definitely in the forefront of our mind and will be something that I'm quite certain Kurt and Mary Margaret will include in the concepts that we bring back in December. With regard to the East Pond, it is definitely our desire and intention and plan to not put any fences around any of the proposed stormwater ponds or water features. That has to do with steepness of side slopes. And I think we mentioned in one of our previous presentations, the existing East Pond and the Central Pond before we filled it in were an older design and those were built quite some time ago. And the steepness of those side slopes required fences, but that's not being proposed for any of the ponds or water features or the constructed wetland even.
Thank you, team. I appreciate that. I see Mr. Matt Burke is next and then followed by Mr. Eric Katz. So Mr. Burke, I'm going to bring you in, and if you want to unmute, you will be live in the session.
All right, you guys can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to also address the skate park. I am probably one of the strongest proponents for the skate park that you will come across here in Tallahassee. I currently use the skate park over on Jackson Bluff anywhere between 5 and 7 days a week. I'm out there in the mornings between like 9 and 11, and there's anywhere from groups of, let's say, 10 of us for the sake of where we are in the world these days. And it ranges anywhere from parents with their 6-year-old kids, teaching them how to skateboard, ride a bike, scooter, rollerblade, whatever it is that they're doing, all the way up to people who are recovering addicts, recovering alcoholics, people that have, are remaking their life into a more positive setting and making exercise and that a more, positive aspect of our lives. Right now, there are somewhere close to 90 parks in and around the city of Tallahassee, and we can only skate at one of them currently. I do understand that we have what's being built at Railroad Square currently. That's something that we are all very excited about. That is a major topic of conversation over at Jackson Bluff. Autumn, I appreciate that thumbs up right there. So we are very excited. The skate community around here is very excited for something to be built. We do enjoy and we do appreciate the Jackson Bluff skate park, but as any of you who are here in Tallahassee are aware, we do share a fence with the prison. So while we're skating, there are times where we will get yelled at by prisoners, where we hear things going on at the jail, certain things that 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, my 8 and 11-year-old kids don't need to necessarily be hearing or seeing. And so it's definitely, I apologize for talking so much and so quickly, but it is definitely something that is needed in and around the city of Tallahassee. Jacksonville Beach has some phenomenal skate parks down in the Tampa and Orlando area. They are packed with skate parks. And around here, we've literally got nothing but Jackson Bluff. And personally, I think that needs to change. I think that if we were to look at all of these other cities who are investing in skate parks, there is a huge, huge positive impact that those parks do make in their communities. And I think that Tallahassee growing the way that we are growing right now, we need to stay in the right direction and give kids and adults more of an opportunity to pursue activities that aren't basketball, football, soccer, all of those more group sports, and give us somewhere that we can go safely and cleanly and be able to enjoy what we enjoy.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. We are noting your rabid support for another skate park, and I appreciate you acknowledging the other Blueprint project that Sue Tansky is actually the project manager on of our skatable art project off of FAMU Way down near Railroad Square. So that's a very exciting project for us as well. And hopefully next summer you'll have another facility to enjoy. So noted your support of the skate park. Kurt, did you want to add anything to that? No? Okay.
Good.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Mr. Katz, I'm gonna bring you into the session here. Hit the button. Whoops. I actually hit the wrong person. Hold on one second.
Good morning, this is Eric.
Eric, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're good to go. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. I just have some numerous comments. I am part of the Knight Creative Community Institute volunteer group. I am a resident of Midtown, so I'm not too far away from the space. Just have some numerous comments I'd like to make. First, very pleasing to see complete streets features being added to the frame of the park. The roundabouts, shared paths, on-street parking, and medians are going to help provide traffic calming. It's going to make it an aesthetically pleasing space that'll really flow well into the space, so I applaud that. In regard to the survey results, it was great to see a lot of slides in favor of more bicycle pedestrian connectivity. As I'm sure we all know, this is a community that is a fan of bicycling in all forms, whether it's mountain biking, road biking, commuting. It's a very popular space. And if you review the city and Leon County's current bicycle pedestrian master plan, you will see that the Market District space serves as a future or will be a hub of activity. There's already a transit stop that is in that space, and this will be a place that will hopefully encourage multimodal accessibility into this future community park. So why not further celebrate that? Why not further encourage the Tallahassee community to use biking and other forms of transportation to come to this park, leave the park, and enjoy the park space? So I just want that to be noted in regard to all of the favorable results in regard to bike ped connectivity, particularly slide 14. I also like to see that much of the survey results showed a favor towards looking at Cascades Park and Tom Brown Park for examples as what the Tallahassee community already likes. And I see this as a potential space that could take the best of both of those parks. And both of those parks have innovative ways of providing accessibility and recreation for those that use bicycling as their form of recreation. So I would like that to be noted. And it's great to see that what we're proposing in regard to a bike skills, bike playground area, definitely want to emphasize that it could be a concept and it could certainly be flexible enough to weave in with the other amenities that the community is asking for. So certainly in favor of having either a delineated space for bike play or a hybrid, which I think also will probably be the best final version of what the park could look like, something that is able to attract all forms of multimodal access, but bicycling being a big one. And that's whether it's be commuting, road biking, or mountain biking. And those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And we acknowledge your support for the biking community. And I think, just looking at the presentation, you saw that was community-wide. And I think we've hired the right firm in Hargraves Jones that they're going to do a great job interweaving all these competing and complementary ideas into a multifaceted facility. And I think we heard that loud and clear in their presentation. And Kurt or Mary Margaret, did you either of you have anything to add to that? No, Kurt, no.
Yeah, I'd say one thing. I would say that I would love to see, we saw at the beginning, the responses of how people get to the park today, and car was huge. I would love to see at the end of this project, after the park is built, I would love to see car smaller and bike bigger.
Us as well. I think we may see that too with all the facilities that Jason's team's adding in terms of sidewalks and multi-use paths that will allow people to connect to this in multi ways. And right now you pretty much are limited by car from someone who lives in that community. So I think we will see a shift, and that would be impressive. I just wanted to stress we still have about 30 minutes left. The project team is committed to staying here until 11:30. Right now I'm seeing no other hands raised in the chat. Oh, Mrs. Mary Catherine Lawler and Mr. or Mrs. Calder has raised their hand, so we will move into them. Thank you for that. And again, just 30 more minutes, and please do raise your hand if you'd like to be recognized and add a comment or have a question for the panelists. Mary Catherine, I'm going to bring you in right now, and if you unmute, you'll be live in the session. There you are.
Hey, I wasn't going to say anything because I put a comment in the chat, and I just want to thank you all very much for this presentation. I really like the overlays, but I feel like we've had two different demographics speak. So I'm going to speak for the parent demographic. I think the younger professional demographic speaking, as well as the retired demographic, those are very important. And the park needs to encompass all age groups. So the only reason I'm raising my hand is to speak on behalf of parents with school-age children. I have a lower school child. I also have a middle school child. And what I would just say as parents who we have activities in the area, obviously COVID has put a little bit of a crimp on activities, but between the restaurants and the shopping, and there's dance studios in the area, we've got sports complexes, my children play sports. So I just wanted to really just make the comment that I think it's possible, and I think you're all doing an excellent job of encompassing all age levels. And right now we just literally have a piece of grass with ugly chain link fence, and really whatever is put in there would be a huge improvement. So mainly I just, again, want to speak on behalf of the parents with school age children that, you know, this is important to us as well. And then also just saying thank you so much for all of your hard work and time. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Catherine.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much. And we are working hard to make this a great space. And I heard your charge specifically all ages, and don't forget about the kids. And we appreciate that. That's great. They obviously can't advocate for themselves, mainly because they're in school right now, most of them. I'm going to go ahead and bring Mr. and Mrs. Calder in. And if you unmute, you will be live and able to talk. I see you unmuted. Are you there? We're not hearing anything from Mr. and Mrs. Calder. If you're having audio issues on your side. There's no other hands raised at the moment, so we can give you some time to work through that. But I just want you to know we are not hearing you. Nope. I'm still not hearing you. But I hate to do this to you, Mr. and Mrs. Calder, but I'm going to put you back in the queue and see if you can work through that issue or try the chat box. And I'm going to bring in Ms. Deborah Crowder again, as she has raised her hand again. And maybe we can get that audio issue resolved with you here in a moment. I'm going to leave your hand raised, by the way, Mrs. Calder, and bring you in again in a few minutes. And I think we'll have a project team trying to contact you independently to work through that issue. In the meantime, I'm going to bring in Ms. Deborah Calder again. Crowder, excuse me. Ms. Crowder, if you unmute, you will be live in the session. Ms. Crowder, we're hearing you.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Ice
great.
cream truck.
That's okay. When I was reviewing the information that y'all sent out via email, I noticed that there was, in one of the concepts, there was a model boat sailing mention. And I know when, and I'm going to get this, when they show pictures of New York City, they always picture that one pond where you see the model boat sailboats going. And I was wondering, have y'all thought about doing that, something like that, as in being incorporated on the East Pond? Because I've seen a couple of people on Lake Ella with the boats, but I thought, it's kind of a neat concept if you had a facility that could incorporate that up on the north end of town as well.
I can speak to that, Dan, if you like.
Go for it.
I live in New York City, so I'm very familiar with the model boat pond in New York City, and we did one at our park in Seattle, South Waterfront Park. But in both those cases, there are strong model boat communities who make their model boats and want a place to showcase and race and do their model boating thing. So you're the first we've heard that from. It's very interesting, but be curious to hear if there's a larger community of model boat aficionados.
That unique indeed. Thank you, Mary Margaret. And you know, obviously a cool thing. Maybe it is something we can incorporate. I don't know, but that's really a good idea. And I'll be honest, that's the first time I've heard that comment as well, Mary Margaret. So that's great. Go ahead, Director Calder.
Yeah, I just want to give Jason a chance to speak to the water issue with the stormwater, as those are active stormwater ponds collecting runoff and things like that. Jason,
Good point.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Autumn. I think that's a great point that we always have to be cognizant of. These are stormwater ponds. They're not freshwater ponds. They're not lakes per se. So there's always a health, safety, and welfare issue that would need to be considered with any type of potential activity near a stormwater pond. So may not be feasible in this situation.
Yeah, I should have noted that. Both the cases I cited, those are separate potable water ponds.
Right.
And they're fairly small.
Yeah, good points all around. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Autumn. That's great. Before I bring in, I see Meta Calder has come in as well, so I'm going to go to her next. But I did want to acknowledge some of the comments in the chat box real quick for the record and for everybody online if they're not able to see the chat box. But Mr. Spencer Wolf noted a skate park is multi-use, accommodates skateboards, rollerblades, roller skates, scooters, and BMX bikes. And also note that Miss Brittany D asked the question, which we may have to get with you offline on this. What and how many parks and rec areas are currently and in the future being budgeted and planned in Tallahassee? That's a much bigger pragmatic question for Leon County and City of Tallahassee that is kind of outside the blueprint world. So Ms. Brittany, if you could leave your contact information or someone from our panel will get in touch with you in a private chat to be able to answer that question to you more specifically. I don't think we're going to be able to answer that fully here on this particular call. With that, I'm going to bring in Ms. Meta Calder to the chat, and let's see if we can get the audio fixed. You're unmuted. Can we hear you?
Chris?
Yes, perfect. We hear you.
Oh, we switched computers. Okay. Well, I'm enthusiastic about the emphasis on the natural areas and all that stuff. And what I'm concerned about is that the different, kind of interests that are out here, there sounds like an enormous amount of concrete. You know, when you add up the skate park and you add up the concrete pathways and you add in the splash area for the children, that's an awful lot of concrete. And I'm hoping that you're keeping that in mind. You know, maybe we can't serve all of these needs, and maybe some of them will have to go in maybe a different park with more area. So that's my vote there. I like the natural areas, and I hope that will continue to be the primary emphasis. Though I acknowledge there are other things that like the splash thing, it looks like a lot of people really want that. Perhaps that ought to be where the concrete goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Calder, for that comment, and noted that that you prefer the natural landscape over a significant amount of hardscaping, I'll call it. So that's good, duly noted. Thank you. Currently seeing no hands raised. I do see Ms. Sue also concurs with Mrs. Calder, and I concur on the issue of too much concrete. And another question, this one I'll punt over to Kurt that's in the chat box, and it says, are recycled materials being highly considered for construction? Kurt, do you think you could take that?
Our specifications generally incorporate opportunities for the contractors to incorporate recycled materials into their palette of what they use to put the park together. So yes, and often we follow LEED or sites certification, so that maximizes the ability to be super efficient in the use of material.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Appreciate responding to Miss Brittany's comment in the chat box. I see Miss Mary Catherine Lawler has raised her hand. I'm going to bring you into the chat, and if you unmute, you will be available to speak.
Hey, I thought Ms. Calder made a really great point. And so maybe one thing to consider for the kids, whether it's playground or splash pad, anything with water, is sort of what Cascades Park did with very natural looking playground. We're big outside people anyway. and I think with the pandemic going on, something to consider is getting the kids outside. So maybe, and I'm not a creative person, so I'm just throwing this out there for all of you to think of, but surely there's maybe some ideas, because I agree with her, less concrete is better. So maybe there's a way to put in this playground, water, whatever, nature paths in a way that it's not immediately seen that it's a big old concrete pad or a big old concrete playground, that maybe there's some really creative ways that you could integrate that with nature. So again, I'm not a creative person, but I like the concept of what she's saying. So I hope my comments make sense, and maybe that's a doable thing or not. I have no idea if they even make anything like that. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. And it's always good to challenge our consultants to do something very unique and be creative, and that's what they're paid to do. So I will punt that over to them for the challenge. And I don't know if Kurt or Mary Margaret want to speak to that at all, but you know, that's what they're here to do, is figure out how to do all these wonderful things and integrate it together and seamlessly. And they do a great job.
Well, one thing I could offer is that we are now doing some play areas in other cities that have a bark mulch as the safety surface. You know, play areas have to have a safety surface for cushioning of falls, but that doesn't, you know, so that's definitely not concrete, first of all. It can be the rubberized, but the rubberized has a lot of issues. So we are finding maintenance issues. We are finding that in some cities we're using bark mulch, which is a very natural feel in play areas. And that can be the case for paths as well. They don't have to be concrete. So we will be looking at ways of minimizing, I can assure you, minimizing paving in the project.
All right, thank you, Mary Margaret. I appreciate that. Again, we have about 20 minutes left. I see Miss Sue Hansen has raised her hand again. Oh, and then it went down. So, oh, there it is again. All right, I'm figuring out Zoom as fast as I can. So here we go. We'll bring Miss Sue Hansen back in. And then I see Miss Brittany D has also raised her hand, and she'll be next. Miss Sue, you're in the room.
Oh, thank you again. I meant to send a chat, but then I went to mute. Anyway, raised my hand. I just wanted to very strongly second the idea of the bark mulch in place of concrete. I think that's a fantastic idea for both playground area and paths. As long as they're not cutting down extra trees to do it, if they're taking the bark mulch from already established lumber supply. That's my comment. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Sue. Let's see here. I'm going to bring in Miss Brittany. You're available to unmute and join the conversation.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I totally understand the idea of people picturing a concrete jungle with wide paths. As someone that has kids, that we have been in a lot of parks with a lot of paths, it is nice to have something flat that you can use a stroller, that you can use a scooter, that you're not hitting rocks and you're not hitting tree stumps. And when it rains, that you're not tracking mud. So it is nice to have paved in some way areas for inexperienced riders, little kids that are learning to go use these paths, as well as people, you know, with a walker or things like that. And as far as bark goes, I've seen the tires be used. I have a love-hate with it. I love that it's natural material, but also having kids that have used bark playgrounds, it gets in their shoes, they get splinters. It's not the funnest to land on. Well, there's not really anything that's fun to land on, but you know, it's just one of those things that I don't know if there's something better that can be done. I don't know. So that's just
If I could jump in, Brittany, the product we're talking about that Mary Margaret mentioned, it's highly processed. It's not your garden center variety bark mulch. It's very processed and soft and compactable.
And Ashley Edwards, who's the Director of Parks for City of Tallahassee, would also like to chime in on this.
Hi, thank you, Dan. I wanted to just really quickly throw in a comment about the playground surfacing. We have actually started using an artificial turf product that looks like grass. It's called Forever Lawn. It's wonderful. It is what we would recommend. It actually saves tons of maintenance time for us. It's long lasting and it's durable. We do have this in several other locations in our park system. The rubber mulch that we have at Tom Brown Park has not proven to be effective, and we're actually trying to phase that out. Obviously, we use some wood fiber, material under a lot of our playgrounds, that is very labor intensive to maintain, and it has some of the other issues that some of your speakers have mentioned. Our preference, and there is an additional cost to it though, is the artificial turf grass looking surface under that. You can see that at the new playground that we have at Tom Brown Park. Serves us very well. And again, the biggest benefit that really helps us offset the slightly higher upfront cost is the amount of maintenance time it saves for us. So that would certainly be our preference and recommendation as an alternate surface to look at.
Thank you, Director Edwards. I appreciate that comment in response to Ms. Brittany. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Ms. Deborah Crowder again, and then Mr. Matt Burt will follow Ms. Deborah. Ms. Deborah, you're in the room. If you unmute, you'll be live.
I'm sorry, I wasn't raising my hand.
Oh, well, I apologize.
It's good to hear from you again.
We'll move on to Mr. Matt Burke. I'll go ahead and bring you in the room.
Hey, back again. So I was going to comment just to what Ashley had to say, but I see that she's no longer in the room here. So hopefully, hey, how are we? So the thing that I'm curious about is if you're talking about the like Forever Lawn or that kind of fake turf that you're discussing, would that be the turf that is currently at the playground down in the Railroad Square area?
Yes. No, it's a different. It actually is a different. It's a similar concept, different brand, different type, different product. It's the type that is over at the new playground at Tom Brown is the best place I can tell you. You can see it. We actually have pieces of it at the Rotary Centennial Playground at Tom Brown as well, where we started to change those rubber mulch pieces out.
Okay. The only thing that I'm worried about, and I think I know what you're talking about over at that newer Tom Brown Park. The thing that I was worried about is the turf over at that Railroad Square Park. I mean, you step foot on that thing and you could light a fire with the sparks that come off your fingertips. Yeah. So that was just my kind of main concern. It's just the amount of static that comes off of that was just unbelievable.
Yeah, we have not had, that's one of the reasons we changed brands. We've not had that issue. The company that we get this product from actually has a treatment on there to help reduce static. And we've gotten no complaints in the other areas where we've put the newer product.
Cool. That's my only thing.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate your response. Thank you. I'm going to bring in Ms. Vicki Goodman here and bring you into the room. Allow to talk. All right. If you unmute, you'll be live in the room.
Thank you very much. My congratulations to this committee for really giving so much thought and consideration. I think the designs that you're proposing really do a good job of trying to incorporate everything, and certainly all of the public feedback you're getting. I really admire the work that you're doing to get feedback from all of us that surround that particular area. As far as I just wanted to comment on this whole issue of permeable surfaces, hard surfaces, permeable technology. And I know you guys know this, but I mean, just to let the audience know, there are so many various things that are available that are permeable that will also provide enough of a surface to allow a wheeled, vehicle, a stroller. And in particular, I just want to urge that consideration for ADA accessibility as well. People with those folks that are in wheelchairs or other concerns, we need to make sure that the park is accessible to those. That goes to providing a nice compromise between the two. But I suspect that you guys have plenty of good ideas and look forward to the next proposal when we can see more defined things. And by the way, just to let you know, I am in the Halifax neighborhood right next to the Martin Hurst intersection. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Goodman. And Kurt, or Mary Margaret, do you want to add anything on?
I just wanted to say, we heard this in August as well, to make sure that all the connectivity is ADA accessible. And just to reiterate, it's a federal law. It's at the very core of what we do. It's not optional. It's not something that we worry about after the fact. We bake it in from day one. So we will absolutely have an eye out for ensuring full ADA access throughout the park.
Thank you, Kurt, for that follow-up. I appreciate that. I do want to note there's no more hands raised at the moment. We still have about 10 minutes until the end of the session here with the team. But I do want to note Mike Pate has posted a comment in the chat box, and he said early in the presentation there was a slide that showed what appeared to be a track or trail around the West Pond. What is that, and how will it be used? I'm going to punt this over to Jason, since that was on his slide and with the city of Tallahassee, and please give us a little more details on what that is.
Yeah, sure, Dan, I'd be happy to. So that pond is right in the middle of a bunch of electric transmission lines and towers and poles. And so that what Mr. Pate was observing is a maintenance road that'll serve two purposes. It'll provide for maintenance access for both the pond as well as those electric facilities that are over on that side in the form of transmission poles and towers and lines. The reality is that folks will be able to walk along that trail as well, potentially ride bikes around it. So it'll serve multi-purposes, but its primary function is for maintenance and operations.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Kurt, go ahead. You want to add to that?
Yeah, so this is a conversation we've participated with Jason on for the last couple of years, and it's our goal to make sure it's truly multi-purpose, and that we want to integrate all the pavement surfaces so that they are multifunctional, so we don't have redundant or concentric networks of vehicles and bikes and everything segregated into a land devouring footprint. We want to be super efficient in the circulation system. And when Jason pointed out to us the requirement to provide accessibility to very large trucks to access the city's infrastructure, that made it very clear that was an opportunity for us to configure it in such a way that it worked to a high degree for bicycles and strollers and slow walking and fast running, all on the same pavement.
And I'll just add to Dan, the vehicular access will be restricted just to maintenance and operation vehicles. It won't be open to the public.
Right.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. No vehicles on the trail in the park.
Correct.
Might be tough to keep the teenagers in their golf carts, but we'll see what we can do about that. I did want to note that a question was asked by Ms. Daly. Is there a link to the presentation? I wanted to note that this will be posted to our website, and Susan Emanuel, our Director of Communications, put that in the chat as well, TallahasseeMarketDistrict.com. But all these presentations will be posted, and the recording of that presentation given by our panel to the website as soon as we can get that synthesized and formatted to get on the website. So it'll be available real soon. So, and again, we will have 2 more sessions this week. And those will also, that recorded presentation will be replayed at the beginning of those sessions, and we will kick into the question and answer just like we're doing today on those future sessions. So please note that. Also, no hands currently raised. I am noting some more chat comments. Ms. Brittany said, are surrounding businesses excited or concerned about the traffic that this park will bring? Jason, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, put that over to you, since that has to deal with infrastructure, I think, more than anything. And if you've heard anything from the surrounding businesses related to the potential traffic that this park would bring.
Dan, I'll answer that as best I can. Obviously, I can't speak directly for business owners in the area, but I can tell you the feedback that we've received has been predominantly positive. There, like everybody, there are concerns, just like folks in Mcclay, Hammock, and other adjacent neighborhoods have some concerns. Some of the adjacent business owners and operators have some concerns as well, primarily about parking. Parking has been the big issue there. So, but for the most part, we've received a lot of positive feedback from adjacent business owners.
Great, thank you. And just Dan Shear speaking here. I have no experience, but businesses typically like additional traffic that drives by and could patronize their business. So I'm sure that it's also a welcome attractor in certain respects to those service industry that Kurt talked about, specifically restaurants and goods and services being served in the market district area. So any attractor, I think the businesses would support as long as it's well planned. And I think that you see here that our team is doing a great job planning this project. Again, no new comments that I'm seeing and whatnot. I did get a message that maybe Sue Tansky could speak to the area businesses that she spoke with and provide a good answer on that. Sue, do you want to speak in on that at all?
Thank you, Dan. I have been out in the Market District area handing out pamphlets and posters, and the folks I've spoken to have been very welcoming and they're excited about the project. So I haven't spoken to anyone that is not pleased with the project. I can't say I've really spoken about traffic. I've had one person concerned about turning onto one road over by Market, Mcclay Commerce Boulevard. But we talked briefly about the roundabout idea, and I told him that we would be back in touch about that as the design proceeds. But all the business owners, everyone's been very pleasant. This has been a wonderful project to work on. I enjoy the communication, and I look forward to, as this continues and to see where it evolves. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate that response and follow up to Ms. Brittany's question. I do want to note, again, no hands currently raised for comments. We have about 5 minutes left in the allocated time for our team to be on this call. So if you do have a comment or question, please put it in the chat or feel free to raise your hand and verbalize that to the team and engage in our conversation. I'll go ahead and see if Director Calder in this little gap here has anything to close us out with related to Blueprint.
Thank you. I was just sitting here kind of thinking about something that's kind of struck me as we've gone through the last hour and a half is that you know, I really appreciate the comments today and the folks who participated last time in August, and then also in this week's sessions. And how that really translates into, you know, people kind of in the car or on the train with us as we move through this process. And, you know, we're getting closer to the finish line, but we still have a ways to go. And I think, you know, today was all about presenting the data and what we heard. And the next step is going to be really synthesizing that into a lot of different ideas and concepts for the park. And we appreciate everybody kind of staying on that train with us. And I think that your participation in this week's activities, as well as any other future public engagement, gives the reveal of what other people are thinking about this park, you know, and you might find that your views are similar to what other people and in some cases opposite. But I think at the end of the day, we're gonna end up with something that's the best balance. And if you continue to participate in this process, you'll see how that balance is really organic and how it evolves through this process. And our technical experts are just here to keep the train moving forward and in a line and hooked together, not necessarily to dictate what's on the train. And so I just was kind of observing that and appreciative of everybody's involvement today and last time and next time. Yeah, that's it really. Yeah.
Thank you, Director. I do note one more comment from Mr. Mike Pate. The KCCI project team has worked closely with area businesses as well. And as we develop the bike park concept, they have been very supportive of our bike park concepts and the Market District Park concepts as well. So thank you, Mike, for adding that feedback and further clarification to Ms. Brittany's question. Seeing no other hands or additional comments. Oh, excuse me, as I say that, Ms. Brittany chimed in again. Is it hard to separate what you all want to see in the park versus what the community desires? Well, I'll chime in. This isn't our park. This is your park. This is the community's park. And I think you heard the director kind of talk to that. we have no agenda. We have no desires. We want to implement what you all want and what our IA board directs. That's within budget and within the site constraints. And that's our charge to the consultant team and our entire team. But that's why we're doing this. It's candidly, this is about you and what you all want to see. And we're going to do our best to integrate all those topics and subjects into this park as best we can, present multiple concepts for folks to digest on and vote on, or pick certain parts of different ones and put together. And that's Hargraves Jones' challenge. And but again, we came in with absolutely no other desire than to see a park from a blueprint infrastructure project team. And so we're excited to work with you to implement this cool and amazing community feature. So hopefully that answers your question. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to add associated with that, but just speaking from Blueprint's perspective as the design and construction manager, I think Director Calder said it the best. We're putting the train together and the pieces you want, and our consultant team's just going to carry that train forward. But you know, you all add the cargo, what you want on that train, and we'll get it to the station.
You know, we don't have a concept yet, you know, and I know it's great to be able to point and say, I like this, I don't like that. What a concept can give you that platform for immediate feedback, but we're kind of in that awkward teenage phase right now, you know, where we don't quite know. And I mean, we're still kind of working through the comments and getting there. The next phase, the next public engagement, I think we're going to have a little bit more meat to be able to chew on.
All right,
Kurt,
thank you.
Market, you guys want to add to that, or you good?
Agreed.
Yeah, now comes the fun part.
That's right. Yes, and so with that, I'm going to work on closing it out. I got 11:30 on my computer, so I just wanted to thank you to everyone who took time to participate. We have received great feedback, which has always helps us develop a project that reflects the community's wishes to the best of our ability. And remember, we will post the Q&A to the website under the frequently asked questions tab. And as for the next steps, all the information collected in these sessions, as well as the others, will be refined into what can be implemented on the site to ensure that the park reflects the citizens' expectations, and that is also within the allocated budget and site constraints. The consultant park designer, Hargraves Jones, will develop these concepts for IA board consideration based on your input that will be presented to the community this December. Specifics will also be posted to our website. Again, I can't stress that enough. The website, TallahasseeMarketDistrict.com. And it remains the best resource for accurate and timely information about the components of this Market District multipurpose stormwater project and park. With that, I'm going to close us out. Thank you again to everybody. Appreciate the time from our team, our project team, and we look forward to the future sessions and bringing you hard, concrete concepts that you can actually see and picture in your mind. Thank you all.
Thank you.